Support for Digging Deeper comes from the Penn State Alumni Association, connecting alumni to the university and to each other. The Alumni Association is powered by pride. Learn more at alumni.psu.edu. And from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rhea Jha. 3D printing is something we hear about a lot these days, but what exactly is 3D printing? What is it capable of, and how can it make people's lives better? On this episode of Digging Deeper, Penn State President Eric Barron talks to John Gershenson, Director of the Humanitarian Engineering and Social Entrepreneurship Program, Nicole Singolani, Media Commons Coordinator for TLT, and Ryan Wetzel, Manager for Creative Learning Initiatives.
So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. A fascinating topic. Now I'm going to introduce it in a strange way. I don't know whether or not you've ever heard of the cartoon The Jetsons that was in the early 1960s. I sort of marvel at the fact that the Jetsons presaged a great deal. They had little robots that were vacuuming the house. George Jetson talked to his phone on his wrist, which we can do today. And they had what appears to be a printer whenever they wanted anything. So maybe you could just start, not necessarily reflecting on the Jetsons, but what is a 3D printer? Is that something that's going to be in your house someday? John, maybe you want to begin.
Sure. So that's an interesting question. I think it's really similar to, I don't necessarily think it's the 3D printer maybe that we have today or the ones that are sitting on our desktops that every person needs there. There's still a lot of things that you need to know how to do in order to be able to develop or design the thing that then gets printed. So it may not be in every room. It's kind of that idea like we were going to have computers in every refrigerator, right? There was going to be, and we never quite got to that. We found other uses for computing that we use nonstop all day long. And I think it's kind of similar with 3D printers as well. There's a lot that it can do to create equity in this world. So that the beauty of the Jetsons was that everybody had access to products, whatever they needed, whenever they needed. Everybody had access wherever they were. And for me and for the work that I do, I think that's kind of the really cool thing that's happening with 3D printers is it just creates worldwide access to supply chains that honestly, most people in the world don't have complete access to that. And I think we'll kind of see it more there where like they'll exist in all communities or most communities, but maybe not every single household. That's my 2 cents on it, at least.
I don't know whether everybody thought we'd have a computer in a household, and not everybody does, but there are a heck of a lot of them. But so physically, what does a 3D printer do?
So a 3D printer works in the world of additive manufacturing, which means that in most cases, especially many of the common models that people are familiar with, is that it melts down plastic through an extruder, and then layer by layer, it builds up a 3D model into a physical object. And so the printer will continue sort of moving around a print bed and laying down a layer of melted plastic in many cases, but there are so many different kinds of materials that can be used now for 3D printing. And then once it's created, it has layered up to form a fully 3D physical model of where you begin, right, in any sort of 3D modeling software. So it's really interesting in that for relatively low cost of this filament and really just the amount of time that it takes to print, which can be several hours depending on the complexity of the object, you can have maybe a perfect representation of what was on your computer screen just moments ago.
It's fascinating to sit there and think about. So it really is three-dimensional printer just like your copy machine. It's just not a flat surface. So what are in the university today? Do we have a lot of 3D printers? Where are they and what are they doing?
We here in Maker Commons, as part of Media Commons, and we're housed under the Teaching and Learning with Technology unit here under Penn State IT. We have a 3D printer farm that's available. It's free to print for students, faculty, and staff, and we have 30 3D printers in our farm. So they're constantly actually printing right now as I speak.
What types of, this implies that it's not too difficult to use. And so what is a student or someone else who decides they want to print something like that? What are sort of the resources? What do they physically do in order to create the object? Do you have, Nicole, some examples of what students are printing?
Yes, actually, right now, one of the bigger projects is coming through the Maker Commons is the Penn State Theme Park Engineering Group. They've designed their own roller coaster, and so they're 3D printing the track pieces, so that they can put them together, and then they're going to have a roller coaster model that they've created from designs that they came up with in their own heads. So it allows students to create something in their minds, either individually or collaboratively, and create a 3D model of that idea. We teach here in our workshops and Maker Commons, we teach Tinkercad as kind of that introduction to 3D modeling. And it's something it is pretty intuitive. We give a few examples of how to create, what to create for 3D printing specifically. And then they can take that digital idea and then make it physical, bring it into the physical world using the 3D printers here that we have as part of our services.
So computer design software, you design something, you have an object, you can send it to the printer, and then you physically could finish assembling it or yes. So, and I know we've had some fascinating projects on this campus, including printing a structure on Mars, because NASA knows they can't ship a building, but they might be able to ship a printer and take the soil or whatever and actually construct something. So this is really remarkable on so many different perspectives. So how many different types of materials can we use? I've heard plastic, Martian soil.
You're really limited by your imagination. We can print meat, we can print bones, we can print metals, we can print carbon, glass. If you can imagine the material or any mix of material, and not only that, we can position different types of material exactly where we need it even. Really, really phenomenal capabilities. And I think that's for that reason, there's not a college on campus that isn't making use of 3D printing in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's, I think one of the great things that Nicole and Ryan do is they really help students get this idea of showing what they're doing instead of telling what they're doing, right? So, what are you working on? Well, actually, here it is physically, inspect it. Let me show you how it works. And it's available to any student. All they got to do is design it, really easily. And then some are using it as their first entry to the market, where they're actually making a functional part that they can test, or the first one to show an investor. So a lot of the entrepreneurship ecosystem at Penn State is really using for that. And then some are even using them as a full-on manufacturing process for replacement parts or custom parts. Really just a huge gamut of what can be done by it.
I guess I was sort of biased. Maybe it's because I never seem to have extra time with this notion that here's a house and a kitchen drawer and the knob breaks, and it's 40 years old, and there's no way I can go to some hardware store and get it or find it and have them mail it to me. That someday I'll just be able to print the knob because my house will come with the the computer digital descriptions. And so this is sort of this just make life a little easier in some ways. But you started down a path that's much more profound, printing bone, printing an organ. Are we about to see a revolution in healthcare because you can literally print a part of the human body and then presumably have it be something that your body won't reject, that you could get a new knee?
We're already there. It's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
We're already there.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more revolutionary than that. So for me, what really gets me excited is not the high end use. I mean, the high end uses are really cool. They make the paper. For me, it's this broad use. So you were talking about replacing your drawer knob. Okay, so that's really interesting. But think of all the people in all of the communities all around the world that don't have access to that component when it breaks. And that component can be on the only well pump in town. It can be on the 20-year-old medical equipment that's in their hospital. You know, there's really fantastic things that we can do all around the world for, you know, basically the other 80% of the world that has no access to a complete global supply chain.
So this is no longer shipping, waiting months for the part. This is basically, as long as you've got the metal or plastic material, you can essentially melt it and create it.
You got it exactly. So I mean, one of the things that's launched out of Penn State and out of the HESI program, the Humanitarian Engineering and Social Entrepreneurship program, is this company Kajenzi that's located in Kenya. And I know Dr. Barron, you've been familiar with that in the past, where we're creating distributed manufacturing hubs in order to localize manufacturing, but yet kind of keep all these, what Ryan and Nicole were talking about, these difficult centralized engineering processes, keeping those all together, and then being able to make what you need, where you need it, when you need it.
Wow. Ryan, what do you think is some of the more transformative areas here that people may tackle?
I think one of the most exciting things that we're especially doing here at Penn State is just normalizing the idea that when you have an idea or you have, you know, a replacement part you want to build, that you can go and 3D print it. So it requires a specific kind of mindset, right? To build that into your toolkit of knowing, oh, I have a problem here and I can solve it with prototyping out a new idea, right? Or building something with 3D printing. And this really feeds into these concepts of digital fluency, where we want to inspire our students, not just to sort of understand how to pull in new knowledge, right? And expand their own sort of library of tools that they have, but also contribute back, right? And create new knowledge in these spaces. And so if you understand prototyping and building out and exploring these concepts with 3D printing, then these skill sets continue to grow, right? And you become a more sort of digitally fluent 21st century citizen. So it's really foundational to providing these kinds of opportunities for our students, especially for careers that don't even exist yet, right? In many ways, that the jobs they're going to have in 2030, we can't prepare them specifically for because they're still being invented. So 3D printing is another way that we can give them the opportunities to build those skill sets to go to those careers.
Nicole, do you have a favorite frontier?
I think the innovative part of 3D printing is about, as John was mentioning, taking resources in areas that don't have unlimited access to the things that they need and combining them to make new materials, new formulas for concrete or new alloys. That technology allows you to use whatever's around you in different ways than you wouldn't be able to in the past. And then separately, I have some examples of classes that we're partnering with, we work with here in Maker Commons. And so as Ryan was talking about prototyping and allowing students to easily take the designs that are in their minds, we're working with a lot of the Engineering Design 100 classes, and specifically Jessica Maynard's assignment was really interesting. She had her students take a problem and use human-centered design thinking to create and print toys for children from vulnerable populations. So this semester, the students define that population as visually impaired children. And so they use the prototyping technologies available to them, and they actually combine 3D printing with things like Arduinos and other microcontrollers. So I really like thinking about the combination of 3D printing with things like mini computers that can, control different aspects of what people are creating, or utilizing, we have a Cricut maker here where it's a consumer level die cutter. So you could cut out the parts you need and then apply them with your 3D printer, or your 3D printed object holds the pieces that your prototype needs to keep it all together in one place, like a sensor for a greenhouse, for example.
Wow, amazing. So are there ethical concerns? Are there areas where this technology presents potential issues that we have to worry through?
Yeah, definitely. You can print anything, right? So like literally anything you can print, so it's been, people have been talking, you can print a gun out of plastic, right? Functional guns. People are sharing designs. There's a lot of it also opens up this whole world of open source where people are sharing designs for products. So not only is it what you print, but it's also who owns what you print. There's the ethics of that. The ability to copy products now is really, it's really easy to do that at this. I think those are two really huge ethical issues. And then I'll just get a plug in again, who gets to own these 3D printers, and for whom do these 3D printers work? Is this going to be another technology that we create that only 20% of the world gets to see the advantages of it? Or is it going to be a technology that is open to everybody?
And not having the advantage because of the cost of it, or because of the control of who's manufacturing the equipment, or the access to digital training? Are all of those factors in who gets to have access?
Yeah, that was pretty good. For someone who says you're not too fluent in it, you kind of hit all the major issues. That was pretty awesome.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad. So, it is interesting because we talk about broadband as a revolutionary, but in the rural areas of this country, we don't have access. And it is increasingly placing populations at a disadvantage. So it is conceivable that here is this dream that you are absolutely transforming rural areas or poor areas because you don't have to worry about supply chain issues and you can print it. And at the very same time, it's also possible that this will create an even greater divide between populations if you don't have access.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I harp on with students in this HESI program is you've got the privilege of this fantastic education. For what ends are you going to use this education? For whose ends are you going to use this education? There are a lot of people that are, graduating from whatever university and going out there and taking jobs that are helping this top 20% of the population economically. But who's focusing their resources on everybody else? So this could be an opportunity to actually localize manufacturing and localize the design. So I can make products that people in Kisumu, Kenya really need, where nobody in the world is focusing on Kisumu, Kenya, because it's too expensive to ship everything, et cetera there. But with digital manufacturing just in general, it's really easy to get things where they need to be for the people that need it.
So Penn State's reputation in this space is significant, is it not? Are we viewed as a leading university in 3D printing and additive manufacturing?
I would say one of the top few in the world.
Top few in the world.
Yeah, SIMP 3D is kind of like, to some degree, the heartbeat of that, pushing that leading edge of it. They're doing just an outstanding job of world-leading research as to what 3D additive manufacturing could possibly be. And I think we've got one of the leading graduate programs in it as well.
So will we end up with our students wanting this on their resume, that they've had some experience here?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something where, speaking about access, right, where we've really tried to democratize access to not only students at University Park, but the entire Commonwealth campus community can get access to these machines as well. We partnered with the university libraries to ship prints through the existing interlibrary loan system. So any of the students at the Commonwealth campuses can use these systems for free if they don't already have 3D printers at their campuses, which many of them are starting to as well. And so really it just requires enthusiasm. If you're excited about this and you want to learn, it doesn't matter what discipline or major you're in, you can become proficient in 3D printing and absolutely add that to your resume as something that helps you stand out.
Wow, remarkable. You know, our time just went so fast, and I know there's none left, but I have to ask one more question. If you have a really quick answer, how long before someone will have a personal 3D printer in their home?
I think you're talking to three people that already have one.
Okay, but I can't go buy one on Amazon yet, can I? Oh, I can. Okay, the world is changing and I'm not keeping up. So I really appreciate the three of you coming on the show. What an incredibly fascinating topic, and what a potential future there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure, Dr.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for speaking with me, Dr. Barron, on this super interesting topic.
Really interesting.
That interview was super interesting. So obviously, based off of that, I know that there's a lot unknown. But I guess first question is, do you see 3D printing incorporated in regular students' learning, I guess, in the near future or even long term?
So I think what surprised me is how much it's being used already. I mean, we heard the speaker sit there and talk about an engineering design class. Well, arts and architecture is another area where you can imagine the design. You know, I'm sitting there picturing someone taking little cutout pieces of balsa wood and gluing them together to create a structure or some sort of foam block. And here it is that you can create structures and play with them. And you know, the arts and architecture and additive manufacturing combined to do the Mars project, for which students were involved in. Or I have seen cases where people take the opportunity to look at some fossil and create a way to be able to examine it sort of inside and out by the printing process. So increasingly, I'm starting to wonder what area might not have 3D printing as part of the educational process, instead of saying, where will it have the greatest impact? Just think of sculpture. Art now has a 3D printing component to it as people use their creative minds to do beautiful things. So I think it's everywhere.
I know.
Going to be everywhere.
It is insane. He said in the interview, he was like, it is used in every school already, and that was kind of shocking to me to hear. So I guess, what would you like to see in 3D printing that would be common use or helpful in schools and universities, something that you think that Penn State and other universities could really benefit from with the use of 3D printing regularly, I guess?
So I guess so there are two areas that come to mind, partly because of the guests that were on the show, that I think are rather dramatic and interesting. In my mind, I kept thinking, this can make life easier. This can make life easier. But here, the notion of replicating a bone in your body so that it isn't, you know, version 4 of a knee or something like that, that it's actually imaged your knee and recreated your knee or an organ. This seems to me to be astounding. But then really to contemplate the fact that we're shipping things all over the place. And if you're a small village in a very remote area and the only water pump breaks, and you can imagine how long you would wait for that part to come. And now you could actually print it as long as there was access to this single piece of equipment. That is an astounding transformation for human well-being in my mind. So I think that suggests that part of this frontier for the university is really combining business and engineering and technology and the human side of our educational process to really help society be better. You know, the mission of a land grant is in service to society. And I think we're watching that here we are at one of the strongest universities in the world in this space. And we really have an opportunity to serve society in so many different ways.
Definitely. I mean, obviously 3D printing is in the near future, as they said in the interview, and it's crazy how fast we're moving. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Barron, for talking on this super interesting topic once again.
My pleasure.
Support for Digging Deeper comes from the Penn State Alumni Association, connecting alumni to the university and to each other. The Alumni Association is powered by pride. Learn more at alumni.psu.edu. And from viewers like you, thank you.